Great. So welcome to tonight's webinar. Before I introduce Cynthia, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Laura, and I'm here to help with the kind of technical side of things. So in case you have any technical problems during the webinar, you can just write to me in the chat, and there's a button at the bottom of your screen to click on, and I'll do my best to help. I'm not an expert, but I can help a little. Cynthia will make a presentation and then open up for question and answer. So you're very welcome to ask a question. If you would like to, you can just raise your hand like this, and we'll come to you in turn. In the meantime, if everybody could remain muted, as you all are at the moment, that would be great, because that means we don't get extra sound interference. Great. Okay, so I'll introduce Cynthia. Cynthia is the co-founder of the Awaken Life Project with her husband, Peter Bampton. The Awaken Life Project is based in Portugal, but has members all over the world. The project is dedicated to helping people awaken to the reality that they are already always free. Cynthia runs public retreats throughout the year in Portugal and abroad, and she leads regular groups of the Awaken Life Project Sangha. Okay, and with that, I'll hand it over to Cynthia.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you. So let's go ahead and start with just a short meditation. So if everybody can just get comfortable sitting up straight. And closing your eyes. And take a deep breath in through your nose and breathing all the way down, expanding the belly. And as you exhale, just release any tension you might be feeling. So inhaling and exhaling, release. Just do this a couple times on your own. Allow yourself to really feel the breath as it goes in to the body and releases. And enjoy the feeling of the breath and the sensation of the body as the body is being breathed. And allow yourself to start breathing more naturally. But sometimes naturally means we don't breathe very deeply. So you still might need to make a little bit of effort to let the breath fill the chest. And release. So feel the body starting to relax, the shoulders, your legs, your arms. And just be a little fascinated with this whole process of relaxation. It's very interesting that you just allow yourself to breathe and you take a moment to consciously breathe. And the body will respond immediately. And realize that the breathing is actually going on without you. You may have to consciously breathe deeper, but the actual breathing process occurs without you doing anything. So you can trust that process will continue and allow your attention now to relax and not to focus on anything in particular. So a minute ago, our attention was on the breath. And now allow yourself to just fall back and let the attention relax. And become aware that you are aware. And relax into that awareness as yourself. So you may notice the body breathing. You may notice some sounds or some sensations in your body. But any sound, any sensation, any thought is all arising in the field of your awareness. If you're fixating on the mind and you're fixating on thought, you'll feel a contraction of your awareness. So if that's happening, all you have to do is be aware that you're aware of the contraction, and it'll change your perception of how you experience life. It's a very, very simple shift of attention. So whatever's arising in your awareness, everything is equal. One thing is not more important than another. It's all content. It's arising in your awareness. That content may be a breathing. It may be the sensation of your body being breathed. It may be your mind going crazy. It may be a warm sensation in your heart. It doesn't matter what it is. In meditation, it's all equal. Nothing is more important than another thing. The most important thing in meditation is not a thing. It's the understanding of awareness itself and recognizing that you are aware of any thought, feeling, sensation, idea, belief. You are aware of anything that you're aware of. It's just an object arising. So you can rest as awareness itself. And realize you don't need to change your experience. You don't need to have a particular sensation or feeling. You can recognize that freedom comes from the understanding of who you deeply are prior to the objects that are arising. So you're never stuck. You can never be lost in thought if you're aware that you're lost in thought. Then you are that which is aware. There is no separate I that's lost in thought. So then you can relax. And not only be aware of the content that's arising, but more importantly, rest deeply into that which is aware. Which is you. So this is a practice. We're addicted to contracting around the objects arising in our awareness and making them important. And mostly we are unconscious of the truth that we are that which is aware. Or even that we are aware. So the practice is to recognize that the content, the mind, the sensation of the body is arising, but you are aware of it. And if you're aware of it, the shift is recognizing this. It's very, very simple. And it's very doable for every single person who is interested in liberating oneself from the false belief that there's a separate I that has a story and a relationship to all the content that's arising. If you find yourself agitated at all, just do your best to breathe and to relax and to not move. Take a deep breath in and exhale. And one more time, inhale and exhale. And when you're ready, just open your eyes. It's nice to see everyone. It's very nice. I see a few people. We just finished a retreat here about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago. And it was called True Happiness and Real Freedom, which is the topic of the call tonight. So it's nice to see Sasha and Monica and Claudia. I can't see, but I know she's there. It's nice to see you guys. Nice to see, or not see yet, but Emma, you haven't been on for a while, so it's nice to see you there. You're actually there twice. Don't know how you're doing that, but that's cool. Yeah, and Sergio, welcome. I haven't seen you on before too. Cool. Nina, I don't know who you're with, but it's nice to see you too. Okay, so the topic. Hi, Pegs. I forgot to say hi. And Jim, Katrin. I'm saying hi to everybody. Suma, who's actually Suma Starkey instead of Pete Bampton or David Williams. So that's like an evolution for all of you that know Suma. Suma and Dave. Okay, so the topic is true happiness and real freedom. So how many of you want to be happy? Raise your hands. How many of you want to be free? Okay, so this was a trick question, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if you want to be happy and you want to be free, inherent in that is a belief that you're not already happy and you're not already free. You see, so what that shows us is that we actually are very embedded with the belief and the idea that we're not happy and we're not free. And then what happens with that belief and that idea, we spend a lot of time trying to find happiness and trying to find freedom. So when we're trying to find happiness and trying to find freedom, we're usually looking outside of ourselves and we're looking for happiness and freedom in things, in relationships, or in feeling. And usually what we're doing when we're looking, even in relationships or in things, it's really the feeling that's the most important part of seeking for that which is already here. Because isn't it true that when we're looking to be happy or we're looking to be free, don't we have an idea that there's a certain experience or certain feeling that we're looking for, and then we'll know, now I'm happy and now I'm free. We all have an idea in our head. It's like, oh, happiness, I know what that feels like. Oh, freedom, I know what that feels like. Or I want to know what that feels like. But even if we're saying, I want to know what that feels like, we also have an idea that we already know what that feels like, and we know what it feels like. So then we're looking for a particular feeling to tell us that, oh my God, now, great, fantastic, now I'm happy because I feel happy. Oh, now I'm free because I feel free. Isn't that true? So we have to break this down, because we're very conditioned, like I said, to believe that we're not already happy and we're not already free, and we're very conditioned that there's a certain feeling that goes along what that happiness looks like and what that freedom looks like and what it feels like. So real happiness and true freedom, or true happiness and real freedom, however you want to look at it, is not an experience. It's not a feeling. People are having a hard time hearing me? How many people can hear me okay?
There is background noise, but we can still hear you.
Okay, you mean unplug my earphones? Okay, is that better for everyone?
No, same.
No? Okay. I'm gonna plug back in then. Okay, so I guess we'll just have to do the best we can, and hopefully everybody will hear me. So I'll try to speak as clearly as possible, but that's all I can do. Is everybody with me on what I've said so far? Yeah? Okay. So if you notice that, if you understand that you have an idea of what happiness is and what freedom is, and you also have an understanding that you're looking for this outside of yourself, and you're recognizing that the reference point that you're using to know if you're happy or free is how you feel, then you can understand the loop of suffering that you actually may constantly be in. So if you think about it, I just want to make this very, very clear. If you believe that you're not already happy, you're looking outside yourself for something that's going to make you happy or make you free. You're going to base that on how you feel. And then you don't get that particular feeling. And then you're in a constant loop of searching for that happiness and freedom that's based on a thought or a belief. And that thought and belief, where is that coming from? So we all have an idea of what happiness and freedom should be, but have you ever questioned, where does the belief come from that I'm basing my whole search for happiness and freedom on? So can you see that this is a no-win situation? For you, it's a win-win situation for your ego. Okay? Because if you're constantly in this mode of searching for that which is already here, you are constantly distracted from that which is already here. So then you have to ask yourself, well, what is it that's already here? What is it that's prior to this whole movement of seeking, this whole movement of searching for happiness and freedom, this whole movement to search for a particular feeling that's based on a conditioned belief? Okay, so if you recognize this, you kind of recognize that it doesn't make any sense. So what is it prior to? That's the question. Who are you prior to this whole movement? Now, the only way that you can find that out, one way you can do it is what we were doing in the meditation. But you can do it right now. If you're aware of my voice, then you are not my voice. You are that which is aware. If thought is arising that says anything, it doesn't matter what it says. Maybe it says, I don't know what she's talking about. You know, this doesn't make any sense, or wow, this sounds really good. But if you contract around that thought, you see, you've closed yourself off from that which is animating that thought. So who we actually really are is that which is prior to everything that's arising in our awareness. And everything that's arising in our awareness is arising out of the same source, the same consciousness. So from a perspective, everything that's arising within our awareness, thought, feeling, good feelings, bad feelings, it doesn't make any difference. Ones you like, ones you don't like. It's all, the essence of all of it is that one consciousness. Okay, so again, let's go back to this habit of seeking. So you have a particular conditioned idea of what's happiness and what's freedom, and you're looking for it in all these objects. But what you're missing, you see, even if you're looking for these things in all these objects, in relationship, in how you feel, whatever it happens to be, what you're missing, and it's right in front of your face every single moment of your life, what you're missing is that which animates all objects, that which animates all seeking. So if we want to be truly happy and we want to be really free for real, we have to recognize, first of all, that it's already the case. Second of all, we have to recognize it's not a feeling and it's not a particular experience. Then we have to also recognize, if I am that which is aware, and everything that's arising, including this body named Cynthia, is in essence that one consciousness, then I must be that one consciousness. But I'm not that one consciousness only in this body. I am that one consciousness where everything is arising out of. So the consciousness that's looking through my eyes right now and the consciousness looking through your eyes is the same. It's not your personal consciousness. It's one consciousness looking through all these different forms that are appearing on the screen right now. It's that same consciousness that's animating a dog barking or a tree growing. It doesn't matter what it is, or a sound or a smell. You see, but if you're fixated on a particular experience, a particular idea, you're going to miss that not only are you that one consciousness, but you're surrounded by amazing modifications of your true self all the time. So if you recognize that in your own experience, you see there's no place to search for happiness or freedom because it's everywhere. But it's a different way than how we think about happiness and freedom. Because normally the way we think about happiness and freedom is how I feel. And that's where we get stuck, and that's where we suffer. Because if we're not having that particular happy, and happiness, I'm using this word, but actually if you think about it, it's like real contentment. It's a deep contentment. It's a deep freedom that has nothing to do with a good feeling. You might be having a good feeling, and that's fantastic. But if you're having a rough day, you're no less free or no less content if you're able to see that that rough day is also just a modification of that one consciousness, which is you. So what I'm saying is super simple. But if you're having any kind of trouble following me, it might be because I'm not being clear. I will leave space for that. But It might be because you're very attached to a particular way of seeing things, a particular way of relating to your experience. So what if you just got rid of the way that you perceive your experience? Now, in order to do that, you have to be willing to shift your attention to that which is aware instead of that which you think. So one last piece of this puzzle that I want to throw in, and then we'll take some questions, because sometimes that's very helpful to clarify what I'm saying, is if you can recognize that everything that's arising in your awareness is consciousness itself, and you are that, then game is basically over. The separate I does not have a hold on you. You're not creating the illusion of a separate I because you're not identifying with any of those thoughts, meaning something about this particular being. You're recognizing it as a modification of that one. But if you don't recognize it, which most people don't, and you can understand this with your head, and you can also maybe have deep experiences of what I'm saying, but to actually live from this, it takes quite some surrender. So I'm not saying this in a flippant way where, oh yeah, I just realized this and it's all over. It could be, but most of the time we have to make a bit more effort because of the conditioned, the conditioned reality that we actually live in. So let's say that you don't recognize all the objects around you and you don't recognize yourself as consciousness itself. Okay, so now we go back to this habit of seeking. So you're thinking you're a separate, isolated ego. You think that's who you are. You believe you're not happy or free. You're looking for a particular feeling or experience to tell you that's what you are, but that's what you're looking for. You're constantly reaching outside. But what the problem is that all of these things are arising in your awareness and they're falling away. So a particular mood, if you have a mood, normally you can see a mood doesn't last forever. It does go away eventually, sometimes quicker than others. It depends on the mood. But everything that you smell comes and goes. Everything you think comes and goes. So if you're pinning your search for happiness not only on a particular experience, but on an object that is coming and going, your happiness, your so-called happiness, your so-called freedom is going to be dependent upon a particular thing or a particular feeling that's coming and going. And you can see that you're going to constantly be searching, and again and again and again, because you're thinking that your happiness and your freedom is connected to something that is impermanent. So that's a lot of energy that you're putting out. So what I'm saying to you is if you can recognize the truth of who you are, which is prior to the objects and also includes the objects as an essence of that which is prior to, you see, you can just deeply relax, and you're not going to spend your whole life trying to manipulate your experience, manipulate the people in your life so they give you what you think you need. You're not going to have to shop all the time to look for the material things that are going to make you happy, make you feel free. You see, and then you're just here and you're being. And you may shop. You know, of course, you're going to have relationships, but your freedom and your happiness are not going to be dependent upon anything. You're going to recognize that who you are prior to all of this is where your happiness lies. And if you can do that, then you'll recognize that everything that's arising in your awareness is also arising out of that same field of awareness that's already happy and already free. So it's super simple. I don't know what else I can say about it, but let's have some questions or some comments, because I think it's helpful. And everybody implicate yourself in these questions, because I'm telling you, we're all very conditioned to think that happiness and freedom is not here and now. And if I'm feeling pain, then something's missing. If someone I love is no longer with me, then something's missing. And if we think something is missing, then what we're doing is we're missing the big picture. It's not because the big picture is missing, it's because you're insisting that something's missing. The big picture is always here. It's always here, it's always now. And so that's what the spiritual path really is about. It's like, can we actually rest in the big picture? And can we make our little pictures a little less important? You know, so if you look at this screen right now, everybody could make their little picture really important. Like, let's just say all of us were just fixated on looking at ourselves in the screen and being narcissistically infatuated with how we look and what we think, and there's no relationship going on. So everybody just do it with me for a second. Just look into your screen and just be like in love with yourself. And if you're with someone else, maybe you're doing it too. You see, but then there's no relationship going on with anybody else. You see, you're just narcissistically infatuated with your own image that has nothing to do with that which is prior to, unless you recognize your crazy behavior as consciousness itself. But you won't recognize it if you keep fixating on yourself and thinking that you're so damn cool or you're so damn messed up. Okay? Or that something's missing. Or there's a problem and you're it. Or the other person's it. Okay? So is everybody getting what I'm saying to a certain degree? Okay, because every time we do these webinars, we kind of find out how crazy we are, right? And that's okay. It's good to find out. It's better than continuing to be crazy and thinking that, that one day I'm going to be free. Because then you're just going to be crazy and hoping that you're going to be free one day instead of being free now and recognizing that the habit of ego is just crazy. Okay, so let's get into this. So if you've been around for a while, jump in. It doesn't matter. Don't be shy. The only thing you have to risk is your own egoic habits. Okay, Anna. Hi, nice to see you again.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the first time I had some trouble with the audio, so I hope this time is okay.
Okay.
I, of course, related a lot with what you said. And in my experience lately, I have been feeling what you described of a cycle of happiness and not so happy, happiness, not so happy. For me, there are certain things that make me happy, like things that I do, like when I help somebody or do something useful, that makes me happy. And I kind of understand that I can be content, but at the same time, like I would feel a little, I don't know, stressed if I'm not doing anything. Like if I am content with my happiness right now, then I am not doing anything. So I don't know. I think I kind of have to have a little bit of a search for those things that make me happy.
You know, I get what you're saying, and a lot of people think this. They think if I'm resting in pure happiness as myself, I will lose all desire to do anything, and
Yeah.
I'll just sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, do you think that this body, with all its capacities, was created to just sit and do nothing?
No. So
Probably not, right?
no.
Okay, so what you're kind of saying, let's just break it down a little bit. So you're saying that your desire for happiness actually drives you to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And without that desire for happiness, you're kind of concerned that you won't have anything to do.
Yes. Like if yeah.
A lot of people think this, okay?
Mhm.
But then look at it, and then you have to recognize, like you were saying at the beginning, is you recognize that you're happy, and then you're not happy, and then you're happy, and then you're not happy.
Or not, maybe not happy, but less happy.
Okay. So
Yeah.
when you're less happy, are you looking to be more happy?
Huh?
When you're less happy, are
Mhm.
you looking to be more happy?
Yes. Yes.
And then you're looking for something, like maybe a person that you can help,
Mhm.
because you said that makes you happy.
Mhm.
So then, what if that person's not there? What are you going to do?
Yeah, I would find other ways to be useful. I don't know.
Right. But then I want you to recognize, because this is a
Yeah.
very strong egoic habit, if
Mhm.
you need to be useful
Mhm.
in order for you to be happy, then what we're doing is we're actually using other people
Mm.
as an object to make us happy.
Mm.
So there might be a mixed motivation, because of course there might be a pure motivation in there of just wanting to give and wanting to be happy, but there's also an impure motivation of using another person because you need to feel happy in order to feel that everything's okay.
Okay.
Well, isn't that true?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay. So then what would happen if you found a deeper happiness in yourself that transcended anything that you would do or anything that you would need? What would happen then?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I can have a different sense of happiness. But I don't know. But still do things. I don't know.
Well, I think just think about it, and leave some space.
Yeah.
Because just think about it, like, who would I be and what would I do if I wasn't having to seek for happiness?
Hmm.
And just let that question kind of cook inside of you. And don't worry about coming up with an answer. Just let the question work on you a little bit.
Okay.
Okay? Because I'm talking about a happiness as beyond the separate self that needs to do anything, that needs to feel anything. Okay, so we're talking about, it's not, in a certain way we could say it's transcending all the human qualities of feeling. But I want to be careful with this because it doesn't exclude a human being and the feeling qualities of a human being. But it's a shift of identification. Because if you are that which is animating the body, and you're not seeking for anything out of yourself, then basically one way you could look at it is the body is consciousness experiencing human happiness, human feeling in the manifest form. Because consciousness itself is prior to manifestation. But for whatever reason, there's all these objects arising, and they're manifest forms of consciousness. And we are that manifest form, and so is everything else. So in a certain way, there is no, in a certain way, there is no separate Anna, there is no separate Cynthia. There's just consciousness having a conversation with itself right now, through Anna and through Cynthia.
Yeah.
See, and then as we're having this conversation, if we're truly in relationship, which we would be if we're recognizing consciousness is just having a conversation with itself, but I, as Cynthia, am still here as an individual, and you, Anna, are still there. So we're having a certain feeling about this relationship, but we're not insisting that we're separate, and we're not insisting that there's something missing. You see, we're just together. We're not putting anything in the way. And to me, that's what real happiness and true freedom actually is. It's real relationship. And it's prior to any relationship. It's both. So do you meditate, Anne? I just want to check.
Not often.
Okay. So if you're really interested in this and you really want to find out, I suggest you do start a meditation or you come on a retreat. Because you have to be able to sit down and close your eyes and let the whole world fall apart sometimes in order to actually recognize that which is prior to all of the activity that we're normally engaged with.
Okay.
So I really recommend that you meditate or you come to a meditation retreat. And if you've never done it before, just come to a weekend retreat. It's like 2 days can change your life.
Okay.
But see, then you have to risk all this movement of doing in order to be happy. Because then you might find out, oh my God, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing missing. I don't need anything. What am I going to do now? With all
Yeah, but you might not need anything in order to be happy, but you still get to do choices on your daily basis, and
yeah, you're still alive.
yeah.
You're just gonna sit at home and never brush your teeth again.
Yeah, and you have a perception of what would be better and worse choices, and so you would prefer, like, you have a preference to do something else, and so you would be, I'm going to use this word, happier with the choice that you prefer. So
well, I think if you go deeply into this, you'll recognize that you're not so worried about being happy.
Okay.
Happier, because you recognize you are just as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And in that isness
Mm.
is bliss and happiness that's not dependent on a particular feeling. So, if you're really interested in this, you have to risk letting go of any kind of worry of what might happen if you let go of this seeking for happiness. So you have to take the risk to find out for yourself. And it may look different in every second.
Okay.
But you see, you're not going to be happy by the things that you're doing. You're going to be happy because that is who you are. And then you're going to do things.
Okay.
If you're doing those things, if you're making choices from a separate self that's in need of something, in need of happiness or in need of finding freedom, you see, the way you make your choices is filtered through that need. And when you take that need away and you're resting in something else, you see, the choices that you make are going to be more pure and more clean.
Okay.
So that's really what we want. So it's not a case of you lose the capacity to choose. You actually gain the capacity to make choices. Most people are worried about losing their, their individuality or their ability to make choices. And, when we're lost in ego, we're not very individual and we're not really making many choices. We're kind of robots.
Mm-hmm.
We want to liberate ourselves from the illusion and actually find out, what does true happiness and real freedom look like? What does it look like? Because we don't know until we're willing to lean into it and to find out. Because we don't know. We can go, well, I think it's like this or like that, but that's coming from the mind and it's always going to be, limited. So why don't we just go, I want to find out what that is. And obviously everybody's interested in that. Otherwise they wouldn't come on a webinar called True Happiness and Real Freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we're all interested in that. But you see, there's not one thing. It's not like, oh, now I get it. I get what real happiness and true freedom. I keep switching these around because I never remember which direction they're going. But it doesn't matter. You see, we're never going to know what it is. It's not like I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to get to an end point and it's going to be like this. It's never going to be like that. You find out in every moment you're willing to let go of your seeking for happiness and freedom. You find out in that moment what it is. And then in the next moment, again, what is it? What is it? What is it? And then you fall more in love with not knowing what it is than the need to actually know what it is.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay, well, good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for
Well, it's
your.
nice talking with you.
Yeah.
Okay, but think about that. Think about that question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who's next? Suma Starkey.
I don't really have a question because you keep answering them when I think I have them. But it seems to me that in true happiness and true freedom, we don't need to know what it is.
Exactly.
Because we just are. And we don't have a feeling reference point for it. So we don't have a way of knowing. We just are.
Right.
Okay.
But doesn't that make you happy?
Sure.
So even when we just are, we just are, but there's an underlying current of contentment and freedom that we can recognize if we stop and go, wow, everything's amazing. Everything's fantastic.
Well, also time goes out of the picture because there isn't a before I was happy and now I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
Or next minute I won't be happy. Somehow the time there's just the present then.
Well, and in this, if you look at it though, there's always just the present because that's another illusion.
Yeah.
The whole illusion of I will be free and I will be happy sometime in the future. That's just a thought that's arising now. It's just a belief that's arising now. And then we believe, because we believe that thought, we actually we create the illusion of time.
Mm.
And the ego lives in that illusion because it's never now.
That's right.
But the truth is there can only be now. There can never be a future and there never can be a past. It's always now. It's always, so this is the thing. It's always now. We're always free and we're always happy. Just if you can just realize that, you see, and not move away from it, something starts to happen, and it's already happening I'm sure in all of you to some degree, some maybe more than others, because you wouldn't be on this webinar unless you already had some kind of inclination that you know what I'm talking about.
Mm.
You see, so you're already in the process. And then you just give yourself to that, that process, which is only happening now.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, Sandra.
Hello.
Hello.
So I was here remembering all the times when I felt what you are talking about is not needing to hold on to things, not needing to know. And actually, it's very disturbing because I don't. It's like it's the moment when I let go of identities, and I really believe it has a lot to do with this, with not wanting to let go of identities. Mm-hmm. And not wanting to let go. It's the opposite of what seems to be the fear, because it feels like I no longer have excuses for not being the best expression of myself, for not being the expression, this authentic and individual expression of the whole. And I was just, it just feels like what I kept saying a lot of times, it was a fear of dissolution. It's actually not that at all. It's actually a fear of losing the excuse for not being the best version of myself, or whatever that means.
Well, in a certain way, it's interesting how you're bringing it up, because in a certain way, if you let go of excuses, it is the dissolution of the ego. It is the dissolution of the separate I. So in the end, you're back to dissolution. But how can you actually dissolve something that never really existed in the first place? So it's not really like a dissolution of something that never existed. It's a realization that nothing existed. So, you know, when you're talking about, and I know you've let go of a lot of the ideas, identities and different things, you see, but that you got to get to a point where you recognize all of it, even the whole process of, because what you're describing is a process of seeking, right? So then you recognize that whole process of seeking, and you're aware that you're aware of the process of seeking, and then you just go, I don't really care about that process anymore. It's just like when you're meditating and thoughts arising and you just don't care. And what are you left with then? You're left with that which is. You're left with the light of consciousness animating your this particular body. So you've come a long way. But now just recognize that even the fear of dissolution is putting time into the picture. Yeah. And there's nothing to dissolve. The separate I has never existed. It doesn't mean the individual is not there, but the individual is just a modification of consciousness. It's not a separate entity.
It's very interesting because when you started talking after the meditation, there was really an absolute certainty that there is no separation. It was almost as if you were here talking face to face with me, and it was just one flow. And the next moment, there was this movement of trying to grab that experience. Mm-hmm. And I think it's exactly what you're saying. It's just letting go of that, even that.
Yeah, or just recognizing that even the movement of grasping is just it's an experience arising in your awareness right now. Even the movement of grasping doesn't matter if it's there if you don't make it important. So in a certain way, there's nothing to let go of. Because even thinking that there's something to let go of, again, it puts time into the picture. It puts that freedom is not here and now until I let go of something. It also implies duality, as if consciousness is letting go of another piece of consciousness in order to be itself. So just so drop the whole idea of letting go of anything, and because I know you know this in your own experience to some degree, you see that you've never really let go of anything. You've just seen through the illusion of that which you thought you were attached to. And then all of a sudden it didn't make sense anymore. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
Because did you actually like have an identity in your hand and then you let go of it? Like, how do you do that? Right? But this is a really good example.
In such a funny way.
Yeah, I know, but this is where we have to really go, what's really going on here? Because we all say, oh, I'm lost in my head. And you go, well, how do you actually do that? You take the lower part of your body and you shove it all up into your head and you're lost? You know, it's like, I need to let go of an identity. And you're like, well, what is an identity? And how do you actually hold on to it? And then how do you actually let go of it? You see, these are all just ideas that we have. We are just conditioned to believe all this stuff. And so don't get upset if you believe that you have an identity you need to let go of, because from a, you know, a relative point of view, that's kind of the way we have to approach it. Because if you're completely attached to identities and you think you are that, you know, if I just say to you, it never existed, just don't worry about it, there's nothing to let go of, it won't make any sense. So sometimes you have to go up the ladder with things that are a little bit that aren't exactly true, but they're relative true, to get you to the point where you can see that the whole ladder didn't make any sense. Does that make sense to anybody? You see, but so don't worry about it. We all have to take steps, you know? But the one thing that's beautiful about this ladder and the steps, it's all being animated by consciousness itself. So you look at your whole life, and here you are on this webinar with this longing for freedom. Just look at the whole trajectory of your life, and you can see that there's a thread through the whole thing that's got you to this point right here, right now. And you're understanding whatever it is that you're understanding, and you're listening with interest and curiosity. And this is just where you are right now. And that's great. It doesn't, you know, just recognize that. And so here we are with all our whatever understanding. And we're just trying to break down some of the beliefs that don't make any sense. And then in the next moment, you have more understanding than you did in the previous moment. So that's really all that's going on. See, there's an awakening process. That's really all that's going on. It has nothing to do with what kind of job you have, how many kids you have or not have, or it really doesn't have anything to do with that. It's all about waking up to what's actually true. Am I a separate, isolated individual with a personal life? Is that what this whole existence is about? And if that's what it's about for you, then that's great. But if you're not satisfied with that explanation, then you're looking for something else. And so this dissatisfaction is happening here and now. But can't you get excited with your dissatisfaction? God, I'm so dissatisfied. Yes. You know, and not make a problem out of it. It's like, oh my God, I'm not enlightened yet. What a drag. I must be doing something wrong. Okay, so let's keep going. We've got time still. We got 20 more minutes of now. Pegs? Oops, you're muted still. Hang on a second.
I've got to unmute myself. There we go. I've done it. Yeah, I think it's such a fascinating topic and way of looking at how we are and who we are, and how we talk about happiness. So quite often, I think when we talk about happiness, we're talking about well, yes, this external thing, but it's all in the concept of the absence of sorrow, or the absence of negative emotions, the absence of frustration. And I suppose what I have been learning over the last couple of years of meditation and practice has been the ability to have access to that sense of that joy, that deep, I find the word joy kind of works for me, even in the presence of anger and in the presence of sorrow and in the presence of loss. And that this idea that this eternal sort of essential happiness isn't something which exists based on all of those externalities, but lies there throughout all of the difficulties of life's experience. So I guess that's kind of just what I wanted to share, really, that I think that it's really chimed with you, what you've been saying, and actually just made me think there was a funny moment a few years ago. I remember doing a meditation on joy, and it was all about, you know, finding the joy in your body, and I remember almost doing this mental pat down. It's like, where's the joy? Where's the joy? I can't find the joy. I can't find the joy. This kind of real sense of like, oh my God. And when we were talking about it afterwards, all of us were talking about joy in terms of things that had happened that were external, that created joy for us. And I don't know what's happened in the intervening 2 years, but at some point my understanding has kind of shifted to that different level of actually, no, this is something which is available to all of us all the time, in each and every present moment. We just need to say hi to it a bit, actually, and, you know, allow it to be. So yeah, so I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thank you. That's perfect. It sounds, I have nothing else to say. No, it's beautiful the way you described it. Fantastic.
Thanks.
You see, because if you look also, you know, when we say the negative things, you know, like we have negative experiences or difficult or challenging experiences, and usually we want those experiences to go away so we can be happy again. But it's really, those are the drivers. Those are the times where if we can just stop and recognize this deep contentment, and in that moment of challenge, nothing's missing. It's amazing. Because then, you know, it's easy to say, oh, I'm deeply content and happy when you're feeling happy. But when you're not necessarily feeling happy and you can recognize that, you see, then you don't have to seek anymore for a particular feeling because you recognize it in what you even call negative things. That's why people are always avoiding pain, because we think of pain as negative. Avoiding fear because we think it's negative. Avoiding anger because we think it's negative. But when we recognize that all of it is arising and the essence of it is all that one consciousness, and from an awakening process point of view, it's those moments of challenge that actually push us to transcend our wrong ideas and inaccurate beliefs. So that's why it's fantastic. All you have to do is look at your own experience and you recognize that. You don't transcend very much if you're just, you know, feeling happy. You can appreciate it. There's nothing wrong with feeling happy. But we learn a lot more usually when we're suffering. And then when we get tired of suffering, we learn. Because we go deeper. We don't live this life of superficiality that's based on feeling. Hey, Candida.
Hi.
Hi. Looking good.
Yeah, feeling great.
Good.
I just, a while back, and also listening to Sandra, it was similar to what she was saying. I was feeling during your talk this uh-oh kind of moment where the realization of this responsibility that once we know that prior to anything is this being free, that we already know is the case, and and after that can come happiness or sadness or whatever experience inside that. I felt this really big it's but it's great. It's also great because that is actually so liberating, the understanding that from, I don't know which part of the being you can understand it, but just it kind of explodes from the heart, and it's just so clear that like in the chanting, some of the chants that we do, which is do I really want to be free, and not do I really want to be happy, or do I want to feel happy, or do I want to have a beautiful life. It is, do I really want to be free, here and now as well, but yeah. And so this has been quite liberating to be here today. And also kind of challenging in the way how, okay, there's work to do in the sense it's going to continue. There's no turning back.
Yeah, but you don't need to worry about that because, again, you don't want to put time into the picture because in every moment you can transcend the belief that it's going to be a certain way because we actually don't know. I mean, probably we're going to have to make some effort because we recognize there's conditioning, but we always have to leave space for the mystery to come in a way that we don't expect it. You know, and as long as we have that little bit of space for the mystery to come in, you see, we're in a position of humility opposed to in a position, well, I already know what needs to happen. And if we're in that position of humility, then there's space for something beyond what we could have ever imagined.
Yeah, and also, and also, I feel that there is more space for feeling, in the sense that it's not being completely infatuated with the feeling, but really fully living it,
right,
whatever time it needs. But this is also very, very liberating that we're not cutting off from being here or having this experience. We just have a different perspective on it, or a different experience of the experience through this understanding.
Yeah, that's really good because, you know, it's like we want to be able to fully feel and not be avoiding certain feelings and certain experience. We don't need to be intimidated by our human experience. We can fully embrace the human experience because we recognize that who we are is prior to that experience. And then it just is experience. Because we're all having an experience. It's only when we make a story out of the, an experience of pain or an experience of something. When we start making the story, we actually disconnect and we don't really feel because we're infatuated with the story more than we are with being present with the different experiences that are actually happening to us because we are human, we are human beings. It's really to fully feel and find out what that is and not be intimidated by our human experience. Not be intimidated by fear. Just think about it. If you weren't intimidated by your own experience and you didn't have to avoid, this is for everybody, if you didn't have to avoid any aspect of your experience, wouldn't you be very liberated? We spend a lot of time manipulating what we're feeling and how much we want to feel and how much we don't want to feel. There's an I in there that's saying, I can only take this much. If you feel like you've got something intense coming at you, if you're attached to your egoic identity, then it's limited on what can actually be embraced. because you've got about this much space. And intensity, if you've ever noticed, it always feels like it's too much, right? It's always going to be too much. But transformation takes place when it's too much, then you open up because it's too much. You got to surrender, right? It's like, it's too much. I can't take this anymore. And then you're just like, okay. And then what happens? The container has more capacity to embrace the human experience. And then you get to another place and it's too much. And then you have to give up. And that's the moment of surrender again. And then what happens? You have more capacity to open up to what's actually there. See, so, I've said this before, I think, on this webinar, but, it's never enough until it's too much. But the too muchness, if you just notice what you thought was too much, 10 years ago or a year ago or whatever, and what you think is too much now, it's different. So who are you to say what is too much? This is the arrogance of the ego. So, the definition we use for ego is the insistence on separation and the insistence on limitation. And the limitation is, I can only take so much. I can only take so much intensity, but also I can only take so much love. I can only take so much unknownness. Okay, but everybody's craving love and everybody's craving, not knowing. Because if you look at your experience, aren't you sick of having to try to figure everything out and to know everything? And does it really help? Do you know more because you have a need to know? Not usually. You find out a heck of a lot more if you're just curious and you're more interested in not knowing than what you already know. But really, this whole path, it's not about gaining more knowledge. Knowledge is really good, but in the end, it's recognizing that knowledge is also just objects arising in your awareness, and you are that. You are the light of consciousness, and consciousness is enlivening everything. But you don't need more and more knowledge, because then you just become, a seeker of experience, and it can be spiritual experience, but it can also be knowledge. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with knowledge, but if that's the only thing you're interested in, you're going to end up with lots of knowledge, but you might not be very happy and you might not recognize that you're free. And what's interesting is Pegs was saying it and somebody else was saying it. You recognize that this happiness and this freedom and this deep contentment, it's here and now, because if you look at your own experience, whenever something becomes too much and you just allow yourself to give up, not collapse in a bad way, but just surrender, that maybe I don't know what to do. In your own experience, you see what happens. Everything falls away and you're just left with that isness. And the problem that you thought you had goes away. Or the relationship you have to something that is, that is happening, whether it be, a divorce that continues to happen or an illness or whatever, something that's real that you have to deal with day to day. But see, your relationship to it completely changes. So that's, so really again, there's no excuses. There's only a turning away from this true happiness and real freedom. Because if that's who you already always are, and it's always available, and in your deepest and your desperate moments, you recognize when you let go, like, oh my God, there it is. You didn't make it in that moment. You just decided not to deny it in that moment. You let go of all of your resistance in the moment that you surrender. And look in your own experience. When you do that, there's always this feeling of being held, of everything being okay, and just this isness where you don't even have to do anything in that moment. So look in your own experience, because you don't have to have, you know, everybody's had that experience, whether you're in high school and your boyfriend or your girlfriend broke up with you. You know, you feel like you're devastated, your whole life is over, but then you recognize, you know, it's not. So it doesn't have to be a huge, you know, something huge. So if you haven't had anything intensely horrible happen in your life, you can still look at those experiences where you were driven to the point where something was just too much, and you let you let go of your beliefs because you couldn't handle it. You know, you just had to ask for help, and then something was there. Isn't that true for everybody? So see, you know it in your own experience. So that's the most important thing. So you don't need to believe anything I say. In fact, it's better if you don't believe anything I say, but if anything I say rings true to you, then check it out for yourself. You know, and there's magic here, and I just want to say just something very briefly, because we just had this 5-day retreat here that I mentioned at the beginning. So it was for women only. And all the women came and nobody knew each other. And in 5 days, and we all had different challenges. Some people had very, very big challenges. Some people just had regular kind of challenges. But you see, what fell away is there wasn't a group of women there. We were just there. And as we were just there, the stories were not the most important thing. The stories were not denied, but there was true relationship. There was real freedom. There was happiness, even in the midst of challenge. The problems disappeared, even when maybe somebody thought they had a problem. There was still the happiness, the joy, the relationship of consciousness coming together under the chestnut tree, engaging with each other, engaging with its, you know, another form of consciousness. And so how is it that, and this happened on, you know, first, second day, didn't take very much time because everybody was very, you know, very willing. There wasn't really a lot of resistance. But it just shows, you see, it doesn't have to take a lot of time. And you don't have to know everything about everybody's story. You just have a willingness to drop the separation, drop the limitation within yourself and between each other, and magic takes over. And it wasn't like la la, happy, happy all the time. It was constantly changing. So it's here and it's now. So all you got to do is stop making excuses and insisting that it's not true, but you got to find out for yourself. But once you find out for yourself and you understand what I'm saying is true, then it's up to you to endeavor to live your deepest understanding. Okay, there's an obligation. With understanding and with transcendence comes obligation. And why is the obligation there? Because more people have to wake up to this. And how are they going to wake up to this? When they meet somebody who's not buying into all of the stories and all the conditioning as much as they are. Maybe, you know, none of us are like pure manifestations of this consciousness yet. But the more we give ourselves to it, you see, the more it invites other people to open up to other possibilities. So that's what we need to do. So yeah, we need to live up to our deepest understanding. You can't live up to what, you know, more than what you understand. But you can endeavor to live up to what you do understand. And it doesn't mean you won't, you know, you probably won't be 100%. I mean, who even knows what that looks like? But just do the best you can. And don't bullshit yourself and don't bullshit anybody else. seeing if we all do that, man, something really good happens. Okay, so I'm aware of the time. So I always like to finish on time so we can all finish together. So, yeah, let's see where everybody goes, and come back in a month or send me an email and let me know if any of this has impacted you or changed how you think about things. So Laura's going to do her little deal here, and then we'll do the rest.
I'm a little bit blown away, actually. I'm gonna have to find what I wrote down earlier. Wow, thank you, Cynthia. That was really, really good. So yes, I just wanted to let you guys know that there's a few retreats coming up this summer. They're all on the event page of the Awaken Life Project, and I'll send you links to everything I'm going to mention. But just to mention two, particularly there's the 10-day retreat in August, the 2nd to the 12th of August, and that really is the kind of seminal annual Awaken Life Project retreat where Pete and Cynthia take people very deeply into these teachings. It's always really, really amazing. So if you do want to go deeper, then I really recommend that. And coming up a bit sooner is a men's retreat from the 21st to the 23rd of June. So if any men, or if you know any men that might be interested, then do let them know, and I'll send you a link. And there are other retreats as well. They're all on the events page. I'll also send the recording in this email tomorrow. And just one last thing, Cynthia does these webinars by donation. So I'll send you details of how to donate if you wish to. And the next webinar is the 3rd of July, and I'll send out a email, a reminder about a week before. I think that's everything. And tell your friends, yes.
Okay, so for those of you that haven't been on the webinar before, we'd like to unmute everybody. And I don't know, it's an echo.
No, you can do it.
What am I doing?
Putting your volume up.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so everybody unmute, and then we can all say goodbye and good night to each other.
Goodbye.
Night.
Thank you. Good night.
I see all the hands waving.
Bye.
Cool. Hi, Claudia.
Everybody.
Yeah, it's really
Hello.
Hey, Monica.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And Sasha. Paul.
Hey, look at all those people in mozzarella.
Yeah. They're all in the meditation room.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So we just all do this for a while.
Gonna go.
And everyone does it.
Give me a hug.
Good night, everybody.
Really?
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye guys.
Good night. Thank you.